My brother dropped his daughters at my house and told me I'd be babysitting while he jetted off to an 8-week retreat. When I said I'd call child services, he threatened my career. When that didn't work, he sent a bodyguard to my home who assaulted me so he could rip his kids out of my arms and disappear. You ever have one of those moments where your entire life shifts in the time it takes to open a door? That was me, on a rainy Tuesday morning, standing barefoot in my hallway, staring at 2 kids I hadn't seen in almost a year. My name is Malik Carter. I'm 38 years old and live in Arlington, Virginia. I work in cybersecurity, consulting for some big names, the kind that freak out if you sneeze near a firewall. My world is quiet, predictable, organized. Or it was, until that knock came. I opened the door, and there they were, Jada, 11, and Brielle, 9, shivering under a thin umbrella, backpack soaked through. Jada gave a tiny wave, like this was just another sleepover. "Uncle Malik," she said. "Dad said we should stay with you for a little while." I blinked. "What?" She handed me a crumpled note. It was from my brother Vincent. 2 lines in his loopy handwriting. "Doing an 8-week executive coaching retreat. No phones allowed. Girls need a break too. You got this, bro." I swear to God, I stood there like an idiot for a full 30 seconds. They looked up at me, their faces all hope and confusion, and I, despite every alarm blaring in my head, stepped aside. "Come in. Take your shoes off," I muttered. The second the door closed, the weight hit me. I hadn't talked to Vincent in almost a year. He was the golden boy, corporate charming, always knew how to spin chaos into charisma. Meanwhile, I was the one who barely scraped through high school, battled depression in my 20s, and clawed my way into a career where no one judged you for avoiding eye contact. Now I was apparently the emergency contact for his kids. They stood awkwardly in the entryway, dripping on my hardwood floors. Jada clutched a duffel bag like it was a flotation device. Brielle had tears welled up in her eyes, but wasn't letting them fall. I pointed to the couch. "Sit. I'll get towels." As I dried their hair with an old beach towel, my phone buzzed. "Vincent." "Finally," I said, picking up. "What the hell is going on?" "Relax," he said, voice smooth like always. "It's a personal growth thing. I need space. You always said I don't take responsibility, right? Well, now you can. I'm not a babysitter. They're your nieces. You can't just dump them here. You'll be fine. If not," he paused, "I could always let your boss know about that leave of absence you took. You know, the medical one." I froze. "Are you threatening me?" "Come on. I'm just reminding you we've all got skeletons." I hung up. Later that night, I called our dad. Figured maybe he'd help. "You know I can't take them," he said, not even trying to sound sorry. "This is on you, Malik. You owe the family. You've always been the dependable one." I wanted to scream. Instead, I stared out the window at the kids asleep on my pull-out couch, wrapped in a blanket with cartoon turtles. Dependable. That's what they always called me. Code for the one we can drop the mess on. Vincent had vanished. My father had shrugged. And now it was just me. And them. And a gut feeling this was only the beginning. That night, after the girls had gone to sleep and the house finally fell quiet, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat on the edge of the bed, staring into nothing. The hum of the air vent was the only sound in the room. Funny how silence could be louder than noise. I didn't sleep. My mind wouldn't let me. It kept dragging me back to the beginning, back to the days when Vincent could do no wrong, and I was just the quiet one they forgot at school pickup. Growing up, everything was Vincent this, Vincent that. My brother could charm a rattlesnake out of its skin. He was the tennis prodigy, the class president, the kid who got invited to birthday parties before the invites were even printed. Me? I was the techie, which was just a nice way of saying I spent too much time indoors and had more friends online than in real life. Dad used to say, "Vincent's got presence. You, Malik, you've got potential." I never figured out if that was meant to be encouragement or an apology. The first time I saw them side by side in the newspaper, Vincent holding up a trophy, me mentioned in a school robotics footnote, I knew how it was going to be. He was the headline. I was the fine print. And prom night. That still stings. I asked Tara Wilson to go with me. She said yes. I bought a secondhand suit, practiced dancing in front of the mirror like a complete idiot. The night before prom, Vincent shows up with that smug grin and says, "Sorry, man." Tara changed her mind. Guess she wanted someone who actually smiles in pictures. He took her, and she went. I never confronted him. I just didn't go to prom. Stayed home and pretended to be sick. Mom never noticed. She was too busy ironing Vincent's shirt. Even after all that, I got a full ride to Virginia Tech. First one in the family to get into college without a single dollar of debt. Dad's reaction? "Guess Vincent really inspired you, huh?" Inspired me? Vincent barely graduated. He bounced through 3 majors and still ended up in some cushy corporate job because he could talk his way into anything. Every one of his failures? Learning moments. My wins? Nice job, son. Now keep working. I don't think I ever stopped trying to earn their approval. Not until tonight. Because as I watched those two little girls sleep on my couch, I realized something. I was never the golden son. I was the spare. And yet, here I was, again, cleaning up the mess Vincent left behind. Same story. Different decade. By day 3, the living room had transformed into a war zone of snack wrappers, throw pillows, and pastel-colored hair ties. My coffee table, once home to sleek cybersecurity magazines and a wireless keyboard, now held juice boxes, glitter pins, and a purple stuffed dolphin named Mr. Sprinkles. I should have hated it, but I didn't. The girls were quiet at first. Not rude, just cautious. Like they were waiting to be told not to touch anything. I didn't blame them. That's how Vincent raised them, obedient, contained, always photo-ready. But slowly, things started to crack open. It started with Mario Kart. I'd been gaming late one night after they went to bed, trying to blow off steam, when I heard little footsteps behind me. Brielle peeked out from the hallway, blanket clutched under her chin. "Can I watch?" she whispered. I handed her a controller. The next night, Jada joined us. Then the night after that, we were full-blown racing teams, screaming and laughing until midnight. I'd forgotten what it felt like to lose track of time with people who didn't care what I did for a living, or how many awards my brother had. They asked questions constantly. Why don't you have any kids? Is it true you can hack people's phones? Can you eat nachos for breakfast if you live alone? I answered all of it. I even let them eat nachos for breakfast one morning. What the hell? No one was grading me. But beneath the silliness, I started noticing things. Brielle had outgrown her sneakers. Jada's leggings had holes in the knees. Their hair was tangled most mornings, like no one had helped them brush it in weeks. I bought new clothes, some toiletries, a couple of books, and stuffed animals they picked out themselves. They lit up like it was Christmas. Then came the nightmares. Brielle woke up crying one night, shaking. I rushed in, heart in my throat. I dreamed we were back at Daddy's, she sobbed. And he was yelling again. At his girlfriend. She threw a plate. Jada sat silently in her sleeping bag, staring at the ceiling. Her face didn't move, but her hands were clenched into little fists. I sat on the floor between them, just listening. I didn't ask for details. I just told them they were safe here, that nobody was going to scream, and no one was going to throw anything. Brielle crawled into my lap and stayed there for half an hour. Jada didn't cry, but when I tucked her in, she whispered, "Can we stay here longer?" It hit me then. These weren't just kids dumped on my doorstep. These were girls scared to go home. And something shifted inside me. I started checking in on them even while I was working, leaving notes on the fridge, letting them sit beside me as I typed up reports, asking about their favorite music. I even took them to the tech mall in Tyson's Corner. Jada got obsessed with a circuit board kit. Brielle cried laughing at a dancing robot dog. We weren't just coexisting anymore. We were becoming something. Not a temporary arrangement. Not a guilt trip. A family. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And that mattered more. I didn't say it out loud, not yet. But I was already thinking about it. If Vincent ever came back, he'd have to fight me for them. 2 weeks in, I finally admitted to myself I needed help. Not with the girls. That part, surprisingly, was starting to make sense. But dealing with Vincent? That was different. I knew him too well. He didn't just go away. He was always planning something. So I called Ava. Ava lived in Cape Town, South Africa. We'd met at a cybersecurity conference in Berlin 2 years ago and had kept the relationship going long distance, long phone calls, longer silences when life got busy. But she was my person. No one else knew me like she did. When she picked up, I barely got 2 sentences out before she cut me off. He did what? I explained everything, how Vincent dropped off the girls without warning, how he refused to pick them up, and the veiled threat about my mental health record. There was a pause on her end. Then she said, calm as ever, Malik. Record him. I blinked. You want me to trap him? I want you to protect yourself. You don't need to play dirty. You just need the truth. Get him to say what he's already thinking. Then back it up with documents. Because if he goes nuclear, you need to be standing in a bomb shelter, not holding a match. I sat in silence, thinking. Ava was never dramatic. She didn't deal in revenge fantasies. But when she gave advice, she was surgical. Precise. You're not just taking care of 2 kids, she added. You're standing in between them and someone who sees them as leverage. You need evidence, not feelings. So I did it. That weekend, I called Vincent. Put the phone on speaker. Hit record. He answered like he always did. Hey, brother. Miss me yet? I need to know when you're coming back, I said. He gave a theatrical sigh. Still on retreat. I'm doing deep work here. Intense stuff. If I stop now, I'll lose my progress. You can't keep dumping your daughters on me. Sure I can. I mean, it's either you or foster care. Unless you want me to go public with your little, depressive episode. That was it. Let me guess, I said, voice flat. You're gonna tell people I'm unstable? Well, I mean, I wouldn't say unstable. Maybe, compromised. You'd lie to my employer to cover your own ass? Lie. He laughed. They wouldn't know either way. You were off for 3 months, remember? Emotional fatigue? Burnout? That kind of language is easy to twist. I hung up. Then I sat down and got to work. I pulled every medical record I had. My doctor's notes, therapy discharge papers, the HR clearance forms from last year. I wrote a formal letter, attached the audio file, and submitted it directly to my company's people operations inbox with a short memo. In the event of a character attack, I want this on record. My brother has threatened blackmail. After that, I laid low. Didn't answer Vincent's calls. Didn't post. Didn't push. But I had already called a family attorney. And I was drafting a report for Child Protective Services. Because the next time Vincent tried to play games, I'd be ready with receipts. The HR meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp. Subject line, performance and wellness review. No additional details. I knew what it was. I showed up in a pressed shirt and blazer, laptop in one hand, folder in the other. I even shaved. If Vincent was going to come for my job, I wasn't about to let him find a crack to pry open. The conference room was cold, glass walls, LED lights, 2 chairs on either side of a long table. Lila from HR was already seated, laptop open, notepad ready. She gave me a tight smile. Thanks for coming, Malik. We've received a report that we need to address. I sat down, hands folded calmly. Anonymous. She nodded. Technically, yes. But the report referenced personal medical history. Claimed you'd suffered a mental health collapse last year and posed a potential liability on high-stakes assignments. Interesting, I said. And was it convincing? She tilted her head. Malik, I've worked here 7 years. I've seen a lot. But this one? It read like a bad smear job. I opened my folder. Inside was everything. My medical clearance from my therapist, dated 6 months after my leave. A signed letter from my psychiatrist affirming treatment completion and full cognitive function. A direct memo from last year's HR manager, confirming I'd returned with exceptional focus and professionalism. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the USB drive. This, I said, sliding it across the table, is a voice recording of my brother threatening to leak half-truths about my past to sabotage me. You'll hear him admit to weaponizing my medical leave. Lila plugged it in, slipped on headphones, and listened. Her face stayed neutral, but her eyebrows rose a fraction as Vincent's voice came through. When she finished, she sat back in her chair and crossed her arms. Well, she said, that was thorough. I figured he'd try something, I said. I wanted to be ahead of it. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled, genuine this time. Malik, you're one of our most reliable consultants. You've led 3 critical risk audits in the past quarter. I've seen your work. Whatever this guy's trying to do, it won't stick. Relief swept through me, slow and deep. We'll keep the recording on file, she added. But as far as I'm concerned, this meeting is over. I nodded and stood. As I walked back through the hallway, something strange happened. My spine straightened. My steps felt lighter. Vincent had come for me, and I'd shut him down. For once, I wasn't the quiet one absorbing damage. I was the guy walking out clean. And damn, it felt good. The next morning started out normal. I was frying eggs, half listening to Brielle explain the complicated drama of third-grade friendships, something about someone named Zara being fake nice, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Not just pull in. Slam in. Fast. The girls froze. I walked to the window, heart already thudding. Vincent. And he didn't come alone. He stepped out of the SUV in a tailored coat like he was walking into a boardroom, not my front lawn. Behind him, a guy climbed out from the passenger's side, a massive dude, bald, built like a refrigerator, arms folded like he was already daring someone to say something. Then came her father. He trailed behind them both, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. Just like always. I opened the door before they could knock. Turn around, I said. Now. Vincent smirked. Don't be dramatic, Malik. Just here to collect what's mine. They're not property. They're my daughters, he snapped, stepping forward. I moved to block the door. You abandoned them. I left them with family. You threatened me. You threatened my job. You don't get to pretend this is normal now. He glanced at the guy beside him. Lamar. That's all it took. Lamar stepped forward and shoved me hard, 2 hands to the chest. I stumbled back into the hallway and slammed against the shelving unit. A glass picture frame crashed to the floor beside me. Uncle Malik. Brielle screamed from the kitchen. Run to the bathroom. I yelled. But it was too late. Vincent was already inside. Jada came around the corner and froze. Go pack your stuff, Vincent ordered. We're leaving. No, she said. We're not going anywhere. Now. His voice boomed, ugly and sharp. Brielle clung to Jada's leg, eyes wide with terror. Jada didn't move. Lamar turned to them, taking one slow step forward. I hauled myself off the floor and grabbed the closest thing I could, a metal umbrella stand, and swung it into Lamar's side. He barely flinched. Before I could try again, he grabbed my collar and yanked me backward. I hit the wall with a sickening crunch, pain exploding in my ribs. Enough, Vincent barked. You made this messy, Malik. All you had to do was cooperate. I watched helplessly as he marched the girls toward the door. They weren't even wearing shoes. Dad, stop, Jada begged. We don't want to go with you. Too bad, he said, not even looking at her. You don't get to decide. Our father finally stepped into the doorway. He said nothing, did nothing, just watched. Jada turned to him, desperate. Grandpa, please. He looked away, and they left. I stayed crumpled on the floor, ribs screaming, ears ringing, heart pounding. The door slammed shut. Silence followed. Just the sound of broken glass under my elbow and the faint hum of the fridge. It wasn't just the pain in my body. It was the powerlessness. I had finally stepped up, finally protected someone who needed me, and it still wasn't enough. My father walked into my home and let his son assault me. Let his granddaughters be dragged out, barefoot, crying. All for Vincent. Always for Vincent. I pulled myself upright, shaking, blood in my mouth. They were gone. But not for long. Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The second I could stand, I called the police. I was still catching my breath, bent over the kitchen sink with a dish towel pressed to my busted lip, when the dispatcher answered. Malik Carter. My nieces were taken from my home by their father. I have full video surveillance. I believe they're in danger. She asked for the make and model of the vehicle. I gave her the SUV's plates. I'd memorized them the moment Vincent pulled up. Old habits from my consulting days. Officers were at my door within 15 minutes. I showed them the bruises on my ribs, the swelling on my cheekbone. Played them the security footage, Lamar pushing me down, the girls screaming, Vincent dragging them out. You're saying the girls didn't want to go? One of the officers asked. They begged to stay. They were terrified. He looked at me, serious now. You said Child Protective Services was already investigating? Yes, I said. I filed a report a week ago. They were still reviewing, but a caseworker confirmed it was active. He nodded. We'll put out an alert to State Patrol. By that night, I got the call. The SUV had been stopped 3 hours south, near the North Carolina line. State troopers had intercepted it on the interstate. Vincent refused to exit the vehicle. Lamar tried to get physical. Both were arrested on the spot. The girls were in the back seat, scared, barefoot, and hungry. But safe. That's all I needed to hear. When the trooper asked if I wanted to speak to Vincent from jail, I didn't hesitate. No, I said. Let him sit in it. Instead, I asked to speak to the officer assigned to the girls. A woman named Trooper Sanchez got on the line. They're okay, she said gently. They were scared, but they knew you'd be looking for them. The older one, Jada, she wouldn't let go of her sister the whole time. She kept saying, he'll come. Uncle Malik always comes. I sat down at the kitchen table and let that settle. Where are they now? I asked. Temporary care home. CPS is placing them tonight. It's only short term. Can I go to them? Not yet. There's protocol. I understood. But it still felt like hell. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark window. Swollen lip. Purple eye. Bandage across one cheek. But underneath the bruises, something new was forming. Not just anger. Not even revenge. Conviction. Vincent was going to prison. Lamar too, hopefully. And my father? He'd made his choice. Silence. But I wasn't staying silent anymore. The girls were safe for now. But this was far from over. Because they still didn't have a real home. And I was going to fix that. Starting tomorrow, I'd be filing for guardianship. Full, legal, permanent. Not just because I had to. Because I wanted to. I booked the flight 2 days after the arrest. Cape Town wasn't on my calendar, but I needed air. Ocean air. Ava. The girls were safe in temporary care. CPS had confirmed they were in a quiet foster home for now, no school yet. Just rest, meals, structure. Jada had asked if I was okay. Brielle had cried when she heard I'd been hurt. I promised them I'd be back soon. And I meant it. South Africa was everything I needed. Warm sand. Fresh air. No phones buzzing every 10 seconds. Ava met me at the airport, arms around me before I'd even cleared customs. You look like hell, she said, touching the bruise near my eye. I felt worse, I replied. We didn't talk about Vincent the first night. She just made a pot of rooibos tea, turned on some Miles Davis, and let me sit in silence on her balcony while the wind curled around the corners of her building. That week changed something in me. Not because I forgot, but because I remembered who I was without all the weight. Ava's mother hugged me like I'd been family for years. Her dad grilled me about local soccer teams and got me laughing about how bad I was at names. Her brother taught me to make a lamb stew that somehow came out edible. It was the first time in years I felt welcome without having to earn it. By the 5th day, Ava and I sat on the beach watching the sun go down. I've never thought about being a father, I admitted. She smiled. You're already doing it. I stayed quiet. You didn't ask for it, Malik. But the moment those girls landed on your doorstep, you showed up. That's what counts. That was the thing. I kept waiting for someone, my father, Vincent, the state, to validate what I was doing. But maybe I didn't need that. Maybe love didn't come with permission slips. When I flew back to Virginia, it wasn't with dread, it was with purpose. First thing I did was call the CPS caseworker. Told her I was filing for guardianship. She asked if I was sure. I've never been more sure, I said. The paperwork would take time. There'd be hearings, evaluations. But I was ready for it. When my father heard, he stopped returning my calls. No surprise there. Vincent's fate was sealed, arraignment scheduled, multiple charges pending. He hadn't even asked for bail. But none of that mattered anymore. Because the moment I signed that first guardianship form, it felt like stepping out of Vincent's shadow for good. Not the forgotten son. Not the fallback. Just a man choosing to be the kind of family he never had. And that was enough. The criminal trial started on a cold Tuesday morning. It was supposed to be straightforward, Vincent facing charges for home invasion, assault, and child endangerment. I wasn't required to be there, but the CPS attorney said my presence would help reinforce the environment I was trying to give the girls. I wore a charcoal suit, clean shave, hair trimmed. I looked every bit the stable, boring man Vincent used to mock. Vincent shuffled and wearing a wrinkled dress shirt under a borrowed blazer. His lawyer whispered in his ear, but he wasn't listening. He spotted me in the gallery and smirked. That smirk died the moment the judge read out the custody motion, my custody motion. It wasn't just a criminal trial anymore. It was the moment he realized I wasn't letting go of his daughters. He twisted in his chair, glaring at me like I'd betrayed him. No, I thought. You did this. You handed them to me, then tried to yank them back with fists and lies. The prosecution didn't hold back. They played the footage from my security cameras, Lamar's shove, the girl's screams, Vincent barking orders like he was evicting tenants. They read my medical reports into the record, showed proof that I'd preemptively documented Vincent's blackmail attempt. Then came the kicker, a written statement from Jada. It wasn't forced. CPS said she asked to write it herself. I want to live with Uncle Malik, she'd written in blocky letters. He listens. He doesn't yell. He makes pancakes with chocolate chips even when he's tired. Vincent shook his head the whole time, muttering under his breath. His lawyer patted his arm, tried to keep him calm. And then, during cross-examination, he snapped. It started with a sarcastic laugh, then a muttered curse. Then he stood up. This is garbage, he shouted. They're turning my daughters against me. Malik's not some saint. He's just jealous. He's always been jealous. Mr. Carter, sit down, the judge said firmly. But Vincent didn't sit. He lunged. Over the table. Toward me. Security caught him fast, but not before he shoved a file off the desk and managed to slap at my shoulder. His hands were clawed, wild, reaching. You don't get to take my girls, he screamed, red-faced, spittle flying. They're mine. You think a couple months of playing house makes you a dad? The courtroom exploded, gasps, shouts, a bailiff calling for backup. I didn't flinch. Just stood there, arms at my side, watching him spiral. The judge pounded the gavel. Remove him now. Add contempt of court to the charges. As they dragged Vincent out, still shouting, I glanced at the jury box. One woman was shaking her head, eyes full of pity. Not for me, for the girls. Vincent had just sealed his fate. And mine. Because no judge was going to hand custody back to a man who exploded in court and tried to attack his own brother in front of witnesses. It was chaos. But it was also clarity. And for the first time, I knew. I was going to win. 2 years. That's how long it took. Hearings, interviews, home studies, paperwork, and more court dates than I can count. But on a rainy Thursday morning, it finally happened. The judge signed the order. Permanent legal custody, Malik Carter. Guardianship, indefinite. Visitation for Vincent, revoked. Contact, prohibited without court approval. I walked out of that courthouse clutching the stamped document like it was made of gold. The sky was gray, the sidewalks wet, but I swear it felt like sunlight was pouring down just on me. The girls had no idea. I wanted it to be a surprise. Back at home, I'd spent the last few weeks transforming the spare bedroom into something better. Gone were the plain beige walls and dusty boxes. Jada got her own desk, a bookshelf filled with graphic novels and coding kits. Brielle got a wall covered in glow-in-the-dark stars and a canopy over her bed like she was royalty. New clothes hung in their closets. A pile of gifts waited by the door, nothing crazy, just things I knew they'd whispered about. A Nintendo Switch, new journals, the sparkly sneakers Brielle once begged for at the mall but didn't have the nerve to ask for. At 4:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a CPS worker standing with the girls on either side. Jada held a small duffel bag. Brielle clutched a faded stuffed bunny. They both looked tired. Nervous. Hey, I said, crouching down. Welcome home. Brielle's lip trembled. Jada stepped forward slowly, scanning the house behind me. Is it real? She asked. I nodded. It's real. They stepped inside. Jada froze when she saw the balloon arch over the kitchen table. Brielle's eyes went wide at the gift pile. And then I said it. You're not going anywhere else. It's done. Judge made it official this morning. Brielle blinked. Like, for good. I swallowed. For good. She dropped her bunny and threw her arms around me. Jada didn't say anything. She just stood there for a second, eyes wet, then walked forward and wrapped herself around both of us. I knew you'd come, she whispered into my shoulder. I knew it. They cried. So did I. We sat on the floor, all three of us, a tangled mess of arms and relief and quiet sobs. I didn't care that dinner was still in the oven or that my phone was buzzing with congratulations. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing love. I wasn't proving anything. I had a family. Not a patched-together favor. Not a burden dumped on my doorstep. A real family. One I fought for. One I chose. And one that, finally, chose me back.